Ladies and gentlemen, there is a moment in your life when change becomes not only necessary, but inevitable. A moment when the old self no longer fits the shape of your soul. And that moment could be now. You see, we've been trained, through repetition, through environment, through past experiences, to believe that change is slow, that transformation is hard, that you must struggle to become more. But what if that's not true? What if in just 3 days you could begin to tune into a completely new reality? I want you to hear this. Your brain is not hardwired. Your past is not your prison. Your personality is not permanent. The latest science tells us that the brain is plastic. It reshapes itself based on what you think, how you feel, and what you believe. When you begin to mentally rehearse a new future more often than you emotionally remember the past, you signal your brain to grow new circuits, as if that future is happening now. And here's where it gets powerful. Your body doesn't know the difference between a real experience and one you vividly imagine. If you wake up tomorrow morning, and instead of replaying the same mental tape of stress, regret, and limitation, you choose gratitude, joy, and purpose, you will begin to chemically condition your body to a new mind. You'll start feeling different. You'll begin to act differently. And life will start responding to you in ways you've never seen before. The moment you decide, I mean truly decide, to become greater than your environment, greater than your past, greater than your body's cravings and emotions, you send a signal to the quantum field. Not a whisper, but a broadcast. And if you stay in that elevated emotional state for just 3 days, with consistency, with intention, with heart, you will begin to notice the signs. You'll overhear a conversation that answers a question you've been asking. A phone call will come at the perfect moment. A stranger might speak the words you needed to hear. Coincidence? No, it's coherence. Because when your inner world becomes aligned, your outer world begins to reflect it. But here's the key. You must stay out of your old story. That story of lack of blame, of I'm not enough, has had enough of your energy. It's time to write a new one. A future where your vision is more real than your memory. A version of you that's no longer waiting for a sign, but becoming the sign. So I ask you, who could you be if for just 3 days you no longer reacted as the old you? Who might you become if, for 72 hours, you practiced the emotions of your future before it happened? Because if you do, not only will you start noticing signs, you'll become undeniable proof that the future is listening. Thank you. Neuroplasticity is the brain's incredible ability to change and adapt throughout our lives. It's the biological evidence that transformation isn't just possible, it's natural. Most people move through life repeating the same thoughts, behaviors, and emotions every single day, unaware that they're reinforcing the same neural pathways. These patterns become hardwired, not because they're true or right, but because they're familiar. The more we repeat a thought, the more the brain carves a groove, like a river cutting deeper into the earth. Over time, we don't even notice it. We're just following the same current. But here's what's powerful. The moment you begin to think differently, to observe your thoughts, to choose new ones consciously, you initiate change. When you imagine a new experience with vivid detail and emotional engagement, the brain begins to fire in new ways. Neurons that fire together wire together. This means you're literally building a new mind. Each time you mentally rehearse a different version of yourself. One that is confident, grateful, calm, focused, you're creating new synaptic connections that didn't exist the day before. This isn't just imagination. The brain doesn't know the difference between an event that actually happened and one you've deeply visualized. The chemistry it produces is the same. You start teaching the body what your future feels like before it arrives. That's not wishful thinking. That's rewiring your hardware. However, neuroplasticity works both ways. Just as positive thoughts and intentions can forge new, empowering pathways, negative, repetitive thinking strengthens the old ones. That's why it's so hard to change while still living in the emotional residue of the past. The familiar emotions, fear, doubt, resentment, trigger familiar thoughts which then reinforce those same emotions. It becomes a loop, a cycle. And unless you interrupt it consciously, it repeats. To leverage neuroplasticity, you must first become aware. Step out of the autopilot mode and witness your inner dialogue. Then, with intention, start installing a new operating system. Do it daily, with feeling, with focus, with belief. The more often you do this, the more you entrain your brain to reflect who you want to become, not who you've been. The brain is no longer a record of the past. It becomes a map to your future. Coherence is the state of harmony between your heart, brain, and body. It's when your internal systems begin to operate in a unified rhythm, creating a powerful electromagnetic signature that extends beyond your physical form. When you're in coherence, you're not just thinking differently, you're feeling differently. Your thoughts align with elevated emotions like gratitude, love, and inspiration, and your entire being shifts into a new frequency. This alignment is not random. It's measurable, it's real, and it changes how you interact with the world around you. Most people live in a state of internal chaos. Their thoughts race in one direction while their emotions spiral in another. The heart may be anxious, the brain may be reactive, and the body may be addicted to old patterns of stress. In that incoherent state, the signals you send out are fragmented. Your focus is scattered. You're not magnetic. You're surviving, and survival mode is not where transformation happens. Coherence, on the other hand, is creation mode. When you breathe intentionally, slow your heart rate, and begin to generate emotions like joy or appreciation, your brain waves begin to slow down. Your heart rhythms become smooth and ordered. The body enters a restorative state where it can heal, recalibrate, and regenerate. In that space, your nervous system is no longer fighting your environment. It's synchronizing with possibility. When you sustain this state over time, coherence becomes a baseline, not just something you feel during meditation, but how you live. You walk into a room and your energy is stable. People feel it. You begin to attract experiences, people, and opportunities that match your inner order. You're no longer trying to force outcomes, you're tuning to them. Coherence also amplifies your intentions. When your thoughts are clear and your emotions are elevated, you're no longer sending mixed signals to the field around you. You become precise, focused, powerful. This is when manifestation accelerates, not because you're chasing things, but because you're aligned with them. You've become the frequency of your desire, and the universe responds not to what you want, but to what you're broadcasting consistently. Creating coherence requires practice. It's a discipline, a willingness to pause, to center, to connect to something greater than the mind's chatter. It's not about controlling every thought. It's about cultivating the emotional and physiological state that brings your entire system into resonance with your future intention, is the force that directs your energy. It's more than a passing thought or a hopeful wish. Intention is focused consciousness. When you set a clear intention, you're giving your mind and body a target, a blueprint, a direction for change. The clearer the intention, the more precisely your internal systems can organize around it. Your brain starts to fire in new patterns. Your emotions begin to align. Your behavior starts to shift. You are no longer drifting through life, reacting to your environment. You are leading it with deliberate energy. But intention is not just about what you think. It's about the emotion you pair with it. A thought alone has no power without the corresponding feeling. When you combine a focused intention with an elevated emotion, such as gratitude, love, or inspiration, you activate the heart. And the heart has its own electromagnetic field, one far more powerful than the brain. That's when intention becomes a broadcast. That's when it moves from the realm of the mind into the field of possibility. Most people set intentions from a state of lack. They want to change, but they feel unworthy, uncertain, or fearful. That kind of energy weakens the signal. The intention may be clear, but it's not coherent. It's not fueled by belief or anchored in the body. For an intention to begin influencing reality, it must come from a state of wholeness, not longing. You must feel as if it's already done, as if you're already the person who has it. When you revisit your intention daily, you strengthen the neural circuits connected to that future. You begin to embody it mentally, emotionally, and energetically. You move through your day not just hoping something will happen. You carry the frequency of what you intend to experience. You begin to notice synchronicities, small confirmations that reality is bending in response to your inner alignment. This is not chance, it's evidence. Intention also creates order. In a world filled with distraction, it keeps you focused. It filters out what doesn't match your vision. It helps you say no to what pulls you backward and yes to what moves you forward. When you're living by intention, you're not simply reacting. You're creating deliberately. You become the architect of your own experience, not a byproduct of your circumstances. The quantum is the realm of infinite possibilities. It is the invisible field of energy that exists beyond matter, beyond time, and beyond the limits of what you can perceive with your senses. Everything you see in your physical reality first existed as a possibility in this field. Your thoughts, emotions, and intentions are not confined to your brain. They extend into this quantum field as signals, as frequencies, as energy. And because this field is non-local, it responds not to what you say, but to what you truly are. Most people are conditioned to believe only in what they can see, touch, and measure. They define their reality through past experiences and therefore continue to recreate the same life over and over again. But the quantum doesn't operate based on what's familiar. It responds to the unknown, to the uncertain, to the new. When you step out of your routine, out of your past identity, and into the unknown with a clear intention and elevated emotion, you enter the quantum space of potential. This is where true transformation begins. The quantum field holds every version of you, every possibility, every timeline, every outcome that could ever exist. The only difference between the life you're living and the one you desire is the signal you're sending out. When your energy matches the frequency of your future, you begin to draw it to you. Not because you forced it, but because you became it. This is not magic. It's resonance. You cannot access the quantum from a state of fear, doubt, or victimhood. Those emotions are rooted in survival. They're signals of the past. To interact with the field of possibility, you must shift into elevated states: love, gratitude, trust, inspiration. These states tune your energy to a different bandwidth where new events and opportunities exist. The more time you spend in that state, the more you begin to collapse those possibilities into realities. You don't reach the quantum with effort. You reach it with presence. When you're fully in the now, detached from your old story, detached from how and when your desire will show up, you create space. And in that space, the field responds. It doesn't respond to your wants. It responds to who you are being energetically. Visualization is the act of mentally rehearsing a desired future with such clarity and emotion that your brain begins to believe it's already happening. It is not simply about seeing an image in your mind. It's about embodying the experience so completely that your body begins to feel it. When you visualize, you activate the same neural networks that light up during the actual event. Your brain starts to install new patterns, as if the experience were already real. In this way, visualization becomes a rehearsal for the future you intend to live. Most people use visualization passively. They see vague pictures, wish for better outcomes, or imagine success without emotional engagement. But real transformation happens when you combine a specific focused image of your desired outcome with an elevated emotion, when you not only see it, but feel it. The joy of achieving it, the peace of becoming it, the gratitude of living it. That emotional charge is what moves your visualization from imagination to embodiment. It sends a coherent signal into the field, broadcasting that you are already in possession of your desired reality. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's vividly imagined. This is a powerful truth. If you consistently visualize your future self confident, healthy, inspired, abundant, your subconscious begins to accept that identity. Your decisions shift, your actions align. You start moving through your day with a different energy. You begin to notice opportunities, people, and situations that resonate with the new you. These aren't coincidences, they are confirmations. Visualization also helps you overcome the limitations of your past. Instead of replaying old memories and reinforcing your identity through familiar emotional patterns, you're training your brain to anticipate something greater. You begin to replace fear with excitement, doubt with faith, hesitation with intention. The more often you practice, the easier it becomes. The image sharpens, the emotion deepens, the connection strengthens. You're not just dreaming, you're wiring your brain for your future. When visualization becomes a daily discipline, it reconditions your mind and body. You begin to live as if the future has already happened. And when your inner world is so rich, so full, so elevated, the outer world begins to organize itself to reflect that inner state. Transformation is the process of becoming someone new by breaking free from the habitual self. It requires you to move beyond the familiar thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that have defined your identity. Most people live in a repetitive loop, experiencing the same situations, reacting with the same emotions, and making the same choices. This creates a predictable future based on the past. True transformation begins the moment you decide that your desire for change is greater than your attachment to who you've been. To transform, you must first become conscious of your unconscious self. You have to observe the thoughts you think every day, the feelings you wake up with, the automatic reactions that define your personality. These patterns are not who you are, they are who you've practiced being. Transformation requires awareness because you cannot change what you're not aware of. The moment you start watching yourself from a place of presence, you create space between who you are and who you've been pretending to be. The second step is to make different choices in the face of the same circumstances. This is where most people fall back into the familiar, because the body is addicted to the emotions of the past. It wants to feel stress, doubt, frustration, even if those feelings are destructive, because they're known. When you override that impulse and choose gratitude instead of fear, calm instead of anger, courage instead of insecurity, you signal to the body that a new mind is in charge. That moment is the beginning of change. Transformation is not an event. It's a practice. It happens incrementally as you show up again and again with intention, with presence, and with emotional discipline. You're not trying to become someone else. You're revealing the part of you that was buried under years of conditioning. Each time you align with that future version of yourself, you activate more of the brain's potential. You tap into creative energy. You begin to live from possibility, not predictability. Over time, your inner world becomes so rich, so coherent, so empowered that the old self has no place to return to. You no longer identify with the story of limitation or the identity built around survival. You start thinking, acting, and feeling like the person you intend to be, and your life begins to match that internal change. Emotion is the language of the body, and it plays a central role in shaping your reality. Every thought you think produces a chemical response, and that chemical is what you feel. When you repeatedly feel the same emotion, whether it's joy, fear, anger, or gratitude, you are conditioning your body to memorize that state. Over time, this creates an emotional baseline, a familiar internal environment that your body begins to crave, even if it's destructive. Most people live in a constant cycle of reliving emotions from the past, unknowingly reinforcing the same identity and attracting the same experiences. The key to personal change is learning how to regulate and elevate your emotional state. You cannot create a new future from a state of survival. Emotions like anxiety, guilt, and shame are signals of the past. They are tied to memories and events that no longer exist, yet they influence present decisions and shape future outcomes. When you choose to generate elevated emotions, such as love, inspiration, compassion, or empowerment, you are no longer reacting to your environment. You are creating from it. Emotion is what gives power to intention. A thought without an emotional charge has no life, no energy behind it. But when you feel your intention with intensity and sincerity, your entire physiology begins to change. Your heart opens. Your brain shifts into coherence. Your body receives the message that a new reality is already unfolding. That emotional signature becomes the signal you broadcast into the field, and that signal is what draws experiences back to you. Learning to sustain elevated emotions, even when external circumstances don't match your vision, is the true test of transformation. This is where most people fall back into their old habits, allowing their emotions to be dictated by their surroundings. But the moment you become greater than your environment, greater than your body, and greater than time, you reclaim your creative power. You show the body what the future feels like now. With consistent practice, these elevated states become more familiar than the old emotional addictions. You begin to feel whole without needing something outside of you to complete you. You begin to feel love without needing someone to trigger it. Your emotions stop being reactions and start becoming deliberate creations. This is emotional mastery, and it's the foundation of lasting transformation. Frequency is the energetic vibration you emit through your thoughts, emotions, and overall state of being. Everything in the universe operates on frequency, from light to sound to your very own cells. You are not just a physical body. You are an electromagnetic being constantly sending and receiving information. The frequency you broadcast determines what you attract, how you perceive the world, and what kind of experiences come into your life. This is not philosophy, it's physics. Like frequencies resonate with like frequencies. If you live in a state of fear, frustration, or scarcity, you are tuned into a specific bandwidth that only allows for certain types of outcomes. If you shift your inner frequency to one of gratitude, joy, and expansion, you begin to attract experiences that match that elevated signal. Most people unconsciously live in a low-frequency loop. They wake up and immediately recall problems, stress, or limitations. Their body responds by producing emotions that match those thoughts, creating a vibration rooted in the past. Without realizing it, they continue to emit the same energy day after day, drawing in the same people, situations, and circumstances that validate that frequency. This is how people stay stuck, not because change isn't possible, but because they haven't shifted their energy. The moment you begin to change your inner state, you begin to broadcast a new signal into the field. That signal becomes your new point of attraction. It doesn't matter what's happening outside of you. What matters is the coherence and clarity of the frequency you are embodying. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. This means your work is not to chase, control, or force the external world, but to master your internal state. You can elevate your frequency through breath, meditation, gratitude, and focused intention. These practices help clear the noise, slow the mind, and open the heart. As your vibration rises, your awareness expands. You begin to notice possibilities you couldn't see before. Ideas flow, people appear. Life feels more connected, more fluid, more alive. Phooey. And this isn't because the world changed. It's because your frequency changed, and now you are finally in tune with a different level of reality. Consistency is essential. Frequency is not something you turn on once and expect instant results. It must be cultivated, maintained, and protected. The more consistently you live in an elevated frequency, the more predictable the results become, and the more magnetic you become to the future you desire. Reprogramming is the act of rewiring your brain and body to respond differently to your thoughts, emotions, and environment. For most people, the patterns of thought and behavior are deeply ingrained, often formed over decades. These mental and emotional pathways operate automatically, without conscious thought. But the truth is, these pathways are not fixed. They are learned, and therefore they can be unlearned and replaced with new ones. The process of reprogramming begins with the recognition that the way you've been thinking, feeling, and acting is simply the result of habit, not a reflection of your true potential. To reprogram yourself, you must first become conscious of your automatic thoughts and behaviors. Most of the time, people are running on autopilot, responding to situations in ways they've always responded, without even considering whether those responses serve them or not. The key to transformation is awareness. You cannot change what you are not aware of. When you step outside of yourself and observe your patterns, you start to see them for what they are: programming, not truth. Once you've identified your current programming, you can begin to intentionally replace it with new patterns. This takes practice, consistency, and emotional engagement. If you've lived your entire life with the belief that you're not good enough, for example, simply wishing to be more confident won't make the change. You need to actively create new thoughts that reflect the belief you want to embody, and then feel the emotion associated with that belief. You must visualize your new identity and feel it with every fiber of your being. You must rehearse the future you want to create, not in theory, but as though it's already happening. The process of reprogramming is also physical. Your brain's neuroplasticity, the ability to form new neural connections, requires you to engage in repeated mental and emotional practices. Every time you consciously think a new thought, practice a new behavior, or generate a new emotion, you're creating new neural circuits. Over time, these circuits strengthen and the old patterns begin to weaken. Eventually, your new thoughts, behaviors, and emotions become your default responses, and the old, limiting programming fades away. This process isn't easy, but it is incredibly powerful. It requires you to be consistent, to show up every day with a commitment to change. When you stick with it, you begin to rewire not just your brain, but your entire body. The more you embody the new version of yourself, the more your body learns to respond to life in alignment with your new mind. Alignment is the process of harmonizing your thoughts, emotions, and actions with the vision of your ideal future. It's the state where everything within you is congruent, where your inner world reflects your outer desires. Most people live out of alignment because their internal state doesn't match the external reality they want to create. They may have a goal or a dream, but their thoughts, emotions, and actions are still rooted in past experiences, fears, or limitations. They are caught in a tug-of-war between what they desire and what they've been conditioned to believe. Alignment means that your thoughts, emotions, and actions are in full agreement with the person you are becoming, not the person you once were. To begin the process of alignment, you must first clarify your vision. What does your ideal life look like? How do you want to feel? What kind of person do you want to be? These aren't just questions to answer mentally. They are prompts to guide you toward a deep emotional connection with your future. Once you've created a clear vision, the next step is to ensure that your thoughts are consistent with that vision. If you desire to be abundant, for example, you must think thoughts of abundance, not lack. If you desire to be healthy, you must think thoughts of vitality, not illness. Your internal dialogue must match the frequency of what you want to experience in your life. But thoughts alone are not enough. To truly align yourself, you must embody the emotions that correspond with your vision. If you are visualizing success but you're still feeling fear or doubt, you are out of alignment. Your emotions must reflect your belief in your ability to create the life you desire. Emotions are the energy that fuel your thoughts. When you feel as if you are already living your desired reality, you send a powerful signal to the quantum field, inviting the conditions to match your inner state. The final piece of alignment is action. You must take inspired steps toward your vision, even when the path seems uncertain. This is where most people falter. They may have the thoughts and feelings, but they hesitate to act. They wait for everything to line up perfectly before moving forward. But true alignment requires you to act as if your future is already happening. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions are all in harmony, you create a magnetic field that draws the right opportunities, people, and circumstances toward you. It's no longer about striving or forcing. It's about living in flow, trusting that your alignment with your vision is already guiding you to your next step.